new world. Their job is to make money for the British trading companies that sent them here. The land they seize seems to be the right place to exploit. Forests and rivers, coasts and lakes owned by no one. But not all Native Americans succumb to European diseases. And this land is neither empty nor uninhabited. It is the land of the Powhatan. More than 14,000 people living in small communities, around 200 villages on the coast and along rivers, in large houses surrounded by cleared forests and mixed fields of squash, beans, and corn. These are farmers and hunters. There is no gold, no silver that settlers dream of. Just the land and its people. For a while, the settlers and the natives managed to coexist. This land is rich with resources that Europe lacks. In the long run, resources that are far more valuable than gold and silver. And there's more than enough for everyone. Europeans wanted to travel west to the great empires of Asia. Instead, the new world they find amazes them with its natural abundance.
They discovered almost miraculous, unbelievable quantities of fish in these estuaries and rivers. One particular kind of fish which very much impressed settlers was the river herring, or alewife as it's otherwise called. And seasonally, these would ascend the rivers to spawn from the sea in their millions. For example, in the Potomac River near Washington, D.C., during the 18th century, something like 750 million alewife were caught just from that one river in 1 year. It was a remarkable abundance, and people described the rivers as having more fish than water.
Whole shoals are caught in the settlers' nets. In the 18th century, hundreds of thousands of tons of cod are shipped in one single year, sent from North America to England, Portugal, and Spain. Fishing boats sink under the weight of their catches, and the colonies thrive. It takes only 200 years to achieve what had taken 1,000 years in Europe: overfishing.
Fishing tends to remove the biggest, oldest individuals from a population, and by doing this, it changes the selective pressures on the population so that fish begin to grow more slowly. They reach reproductive maturity at a smaller size and earlier in life. And these things all reduce the productivity of a population.
Fish are salted, packed, and sent home for money. Along with them, the settlers send another resource that the Old World is desperate for: It is said that there are trees as far as the eye can see, such that a squirrel starting off at the Atlantic coast need never touch the ground till he got to Georgia. This is so different from the Europe they left behind. They have finally found a replacement for something that is disappearing at home, an infinite, accessible source of the raw material of the age. The forests must fall if the settlers are to succeed. From now on, the trees are doomed.
When the first settlers arrived in the New World, they found forests like they had never seen in Europe. Endless forests with huge trees. Penetrating into the heart of the land was also a war against the forest. The axe became the Yankee emblem. At the same time, forests were the great resource the land had to offer. You could make plenty of money exporting timber. In Europe, wood had become expensive, and so the greatest forest destruction in history now took place.
The clearing of forests that seemed to belong to no one and cost nothing goes so far that by the late 17th century, many areas of the Caribbean and Atlantic islands are completely bald. An incredible amount of wood is really squandered in this country for fuel. Day and night all winter, for nearly half a year in all rooms, a fire is kept going, observes a European traveler. Wood consumption in the forests of New England, just like in Europe, is out of control. For fuel, for building, and to clear agricultural land. The resources in this vast continent seem to be inexhaustible. But in time, fish stocks will dwindle in the Americas too. They create this new world in the image of the one they left. Europeans change America by what they take away, but they change this continent even more by what they bring with them. They come in search of their own land, something almost impossible to find in Europe. They come in search of religious freedom, in search of a better life. They believe they are responsible for their own success and happiness. For the first time, women settlers come too, and they bring a whole way of life with them. They bring animals and plants that are all new to the American continent. Livestock and grains from Europe will transform the New World and make it a true New England. With the newly imported plow, they will leave little land untilled. These domesticated livestock and metal tools have never been seen on this continent. An environmental revolution takes place. In no time, their European wheat is growing in this foreign soil. Wheat, barley, oats, and rye are brought to America. But in the process, some less welcome guests hitch a ride.
Europeans introduced crops such as wheat to the Americas, but in the bags of seed that they brought with them to the Americas, they also brought along seeds for weeds, dandelions, other kinds of weeds, and these are everywhere in the Americas now.
From the most insignificant weed to the continent's greatest mammal, the bison, nothing is untouched. America's native flora and fauna is forever changed. Where the bison once reigned, cattle soon roam. To the settlers' delight, their livestock multiplies more quickly here than it did in Europe. In a few hundred years, European cows eat away the American grass and trample the soil, deposit their excrement, and distribute the seeds of the weeds. The invasion of European insects and animals changes the American landscape forever. Horses, pigs, sheep, goats, chickens, and huge herds of cattle take over North and South America. The cattle alone doubles in numbers every 15 months and feed the settlers. The New World settlers defend themselves inside sturdy forts. But there are no shortages of any kind. Meat has become one of the cheapest foods in the Americas. They are the best fed people in the world.
Boys, you're going to want a shot of rum. This is fresh rum from...
Hides are in great demand in America as well as in Europe. And fur from the wild animals they shoot brings in a steady export income. Some, like the beaver, are hunted almost to extinction. Settlers are not forced to adapt to the landscape. They domesticate and dominate it. Most trees were cut down and turned into pasture and gardens where all kinds of vegetables and root crops that we know in England grow in profusion. They replace the trees they have cut down with their own trees. Europeans bring peaches, pears, and plums. They bring figs, olives, and bananas. And their trees flourish. They never know.